Welcome. Happy Wednesday, everyone. I'm just give you everyone an opportunity to make sure that you can join us. And it looks like we are streaming live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. So while everyone is joining in, if you'll leave me in the comments where you're joining us from, would love to see that. And also, if you're catching the replay, make sure that you use hashtag replay so we'll know that you're watching it there. I will come back and watch comments there. And also, if you're tuning in from Facebook, real important that you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook and give Facebook and StreamYard permission to talk to each other. Otherwise, if you leave us a comment, it's just going to say Facebook user and we won't know who you are. And we would like to know who we're talking to and be able to call you by name if you have any questions. So, if you are new to me and I am new to you, let me introduce myself. My name is Beverly Smith. I am the founder of Career Success Strategies. I'm also the former owner of a staffing and recruiting firm. So I know firsthand what hiring managers are looking for. And I'm using that knowledge to help mid and senior level professionals build their resume so they can land the career of their dreams. So last week, we talked all about how you can stand out in Beverly Smith runs, and it's located underneath the Live tab. Also, you can follow me on LinkedIn at Beverly D. Smith, and I will be giving more tips over the coming weeks, the next couple of weeks, specifically on standing out in the interview. But today, I'm so excited to introduce my special guest and my friend, Adrian Dominguez. He is going to share his perspective on current hiring landscape that we're seeing, including both the challenges and opportunities for employers and professionals. Adrian, I'm so glad you have joined us, and I'm going to tell the audience just a little bit more about you. Adrian is the CEO of Roll Inc. Staffing, and it's a company based out of Denver, Colorado that has a rich history over 3 decades serving the needs of manufacturers, construction firms, and specialty contractors, as well as other industrial service and engineering type companies. He joined Roll Inc. in 2009, and there he discovered his passion for connecting people with life-changing opportunities, which I totally get. He was afforded the opportunity to actually build a recruiting and staffing division from scratch. And in 2021, he became the CEO and owner of Roll Inc., whose team of recruiters spans both contract and permanent placement in their offerings. Adrian's passionate and speaks regularly on culture, the need for empathy and leadership, and other areas in the recruiting and staffing space. Adrian also serves as the president of Colorado Staffing Association, and under his leadership, both its membership and advocacy have grown substantially. Adrian is also the proud dad of 6 children. Yes, I said 6. And he acknowledges that it's his better half of 23 years is the main reason for his sanity in life. So
Absolutely.
when he is not talking all things staffing and recruiting, he can be found with his family on their hobby farm in Colorado or pastoring a church where he was blessed to help start in Aurora, Colorado over 13 years ago. So from his time as a missionary in South America to falling into the staffing industry to pastoring to being a dad, if there's one thing that marks Adrian's life, it's being in the people business, and he loves every minute of it. Adrian, welcome. I am so glad you are here.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Beverly. Been looking forward to this for some time. And I think the old joke is this industry would be awesome if it wasn't for people, and yet it's all about people, right? And so people say this all the time. People are the worst, but they're also the best. and it's our job to bring out the best in them and find, of course, where they line up and how we can make their dreams come true as far as their careers are concerned. So it's a privilege to be with you. I'm glad to be here today.
Yes, and I believe you and I connected on LinkedIn back when I was still in staffing and recruiting and before I lived on a hobby farm. So I love how much you and I have in common, especially our faith and love for the Lord.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will tell you that coming to Colorado in 2009, when we were feeling the need to start a church, and it's just like starting from scratch. And I will tell you, Beverly, and for anyone watching, it's in a weird way, it's kind of like starting a business because no one knows that you're there. And so what do? You knock on your neighbor's door, you invite them to church. They go, "Oh, that's great. Where is it?" And you tell them it's in your house, and they're like, "Bye, weirdo." So there's those beginning years. I learned so much, and I think there's a lot of correlation between that and what I learned even in staffing and recruiting. And as you said earlier, it really does center on people and trying to meet their needs, which takes a lot of listening. And I think one of the challenges that I think professionals, whether you're on the hiring manager side of things or the job seeker side of things, is most people, when they're listening to a conversation or they're in a conversation and communicating, so to speak, they're kind of thinking of the next thing that has to be said and what has to be accomplished. And so oftentimes there's so much that's lost in the art of actually listening. And if there's one thing I could kick this off with, it would be if we could all learn to be better listeners. The job hunt experience on both sides of that paradigm would be so much more not only pleasant, but I think fulfilling for all the parties involved. So I'm glad to be talking about this. I'm excited. I'm definitely passionate about what it is that we do and connecting people with those opportunities.
I just want to echo that so much because I feel like that listening is a huge part of it, really understanding what the client is looking for, as well as, okay, so you may get someone who comes to your office to apply for a position, and on paper they look perfect for this position, and you're trying to send them off and get them in that position or get them in an interview. And then when they get to you and you actually sit down and listen to them, they don't want to do that anymore.
Nope, they're done. They're done. Absolutely. Yes.
I will share an interesting story. Back when we lived in Colorado, I actually worked for a temporary service as a temporary, and they saw that I had banking experience, and that was, they kept wanting to send me out to the same bank on these little short-term assignments. And finally I was like, please do not ever send me back there again. I do not want to do this. I know. And they're like, but they're requesting you. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. And they did listen, and that was what was wonderful, is they did listen. Unfortunately, though, that bank was like within walking distance from my house. And what I learned was that was a good thing, because there is no reason in the world why any Southerners should be driving in the wintertime in Colorado. And I end up having to walk to work because I hate right to my car. But anyway, I totally digress. I want us to talk a little bit today about the challenges that we are seeing, as well as some of the opportunities in the current job market. So what I'm really curious about is, now that we're solidly in the fourth quarter of 2023, what trends have you observed regarding the current job market?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's hard to answer that without also bringing in information about the economy overall and just kind of what everyone's feeling, what you feel at the gas pump and what you feel at the grocery store. And, I've got two boys and they're not even teenagers yet. And we spend hundreds of dollars on groceries on Tuesday. And by Thursday, I'm like, where's all the food at? Right. So I think everyone's feeling this. Yeah. So I think with maybe going back a little bit and looking at the last few years, it may provide the right context. So obviously in 2020, there was the pandemic, and I don't mean to make light of it, but it kind of, when I look back to that year, the businesses were like, we're all going to die. It's like, what are we going to do? Right. And then in 2021, it's like, okay, we're not dead. So what do we do from here? Let's get people to work. And then you find out that generally speaking, a decent amount of the population is like, I don't want to go back to work because I'm making more money on what I'm getting from unemployment than what you can offer me. So there was that extension of the situation kind of exacerbating the job market. And then in last year, it was higher, hot job market. And I think everyone kind of was hoping that that would just go on forever. And of course, due to inflation, due to increased, the Federal Reserve and what they've done with interest rates and all that, it's definitely put a slowdown to the market. And because of that, larger companies have, on the tech side, some of them have experienced a lot of layoffs. And so even though my company doesn't deal with that, there's this trickle effect in the overall economy that affects everybody. When you have large swaths of the economy that's laying people off, it's going to affect other areas. And then what ends up happening is everybody kind of holds their cards close to their chest and go, okay, do we hire? Do we keep hiring? Do we stop hiring? What do we do right now? And so I would say that, some things to note would be that in the second quarter, which is very non-traditional for recruitment, second quarter saw a huge dip in the recruitment and staffing space, which typically, if you look at a typical year, it's first quarter is a little bit of a lull from the holidays, and then second quarter there's that bump up, and then third quarter the summer jobs are rocking and rolling, and fourth quarter you're getting ready for holidays. You got to close these positions before the budget's eaten up, before the year's up. And this year has just literally thrown that entire blueprint out the window. And I think there's definitely an increased level of stress on employers because, at a higher level, maybe at an executive level, some of them are saying we're not sure we want to hire, right? And yet those that are in operations day to day, they still have to get all the same work done, which in some cases means that means I'm taking that on. And so we're hearing that from some of our clients. And then there's also those who have been part of the layoffs who are going, where do I fit? Like you guys were rolling out the red carpet for me last year and paying me whatever I wanted, offering to let me work in Mexico if I want to, sitting on a beach with my laptop. And now all of a sudden I got to come back to work. If I want a job, I got to do this. And even we've seen in some cases, depending on the geographical area, some of the salary offerings have really, really, I guess you could say, stabilized. In some cases, I say taking a step back. And so there's all of this going on at the same time. And I think, again, employers and hiring managers who understand they need the talent are absolutely, in some cases, very frustrated because they need to get the right people on board. And job seekers are also frustrated because they're going, okay, where do I fit in all of this? And so I would say that while opportunity absolutely still abounds, I think it's different than it was last year. And because of that, and I know we'll probably delve into this further, Beverly, but I think the main, and I know this may sound a little cliche, but I think the main thing here for all the parties involved is relationship. Because throwing your name into a ATS, going on a job board and throwing your resume out, you're going to find it is exhausting. It does get tiring at times. Having an advocate, and I'm not just doing this because you're here, Beverly, but having someone that can speak to getting your resume in shape, that can get you really thinking about how to move in the right direction, having an advocate that knows not just the industry you're dealing with, but maybe even more particularly the companies that you're trying to target, the ones that you've looked at maybe even for years and thought, man, it'd be nice to work there. Having advocates at these different levels to get you in front of the right people, I think that is the biggest difference maker in this year, maybe even more so than last year. Last year felt, to me anyways, a lot like the Wild West. And now it's kind of like, all right, let's cool it, guys. Like, let's cool it. Yeah, we were offering whatever anybody wanted last year. We can't continue to do that. And it's kind of more into reality, I guess you could say, in some cases. Some would say we took a step back. It just depends on your perspective. But opportunities are still there. It's just a matter of making sure you have the right people that can connect you to the right opportunities. And I think at different levels, that means different things. I'm not even just referring to staffing or recruitment, but it's so much about relationship. I think more so today than it was even a year ago.
Right. I really agree with that. And I think that I think a lot of job seekers have been fed this idea, this notion, and it's probably mainly through advertising, that all they have to do is go on Indeed or one of the other job boards and apply, and they've got their choice of jobs. And certainly there's a whole host of jobs, but what happens is by the time those jobs have made it to Indeed, we're already through the hiring process. I mean, you're at your most competitive stage, so where you can work with someone that can advocate for you, whether it's a recruiter or someone like me that helps with job search strategies, those kinds of
Right.
things that really teaches you to build that relationship and to network and to find those jobs that have not even been listed. I mean, I think it's the statistic is something like 80% of all jobs are not even advertised. And so
Right.
knowing where to find those, because I think you're exactly right. Companies are still hiring. It's just not the free for all. And I don't know what you think about this, but I always feel like the job market tends to follow behind the housing market a little bit. And you look at what a
Mhm.
free for all we had for several years in the housing market, especially in 2020. And then, and it kind of got topsy-turvy in employment. But like you said, in 2021 and 2022, everyone's like, oh, we can, write our own ticket. And now,
Mhm.
it's like, whew, put the brakes on. And I really think that people need to be more strategic as well when they're looking for work.
Absolutely. Forgive me for dating myself a little bit, but there was a song in the 90s, Back to Life, Back to Reality. All right, so that's kind of where we're at now. We're back to reality a little bit. And because of that, you mentioned that companies are hiring, but they're not being as vocal about it. Absolutely. I think the term, I love these terms everyone comes up with. They're great. And definitely on point with this one. Quiet hiring, I think is the term now. Whereas before it was quiet quitting. So yes, I think employers are absolutely still doing it. They're just being a little bit more discreet about it. And so they're not. And let me step back a little bit. You mentioned these platforms, and let me be clear. We use these platforms.
Mhm.
I think generally most recruitment firms at some level use some kind of platform, whether it's LinkedIn, the recruiter version, or Indeed or ZipRecruiter. But the reality is this: at the end of the day, there are tasks that we can automate and kind of certain extent offload, if you will, to I'm gonna use this term very loosely, to AI. All right, because as this
Mhm.
continues to that conversation keeps developing, we're hearing more about that. But at the end of the day, you're going to be so better off having a real life human being who knows who you are, knows what you're looking for, knows what you're not wanting anymore at this stage of your career. You cannot decipher that from putting your resume through a job board. It just doesn't happen on its own. And so I think the combination, as you mentioned, of partnering with, at your level, someone that can be an advocate and tell you, hey, if this is no longer who you are and what you want out of your life, let's tailor that resume. And then, furthermore, on the recruiting side, having someone that can speak to this is where this person is at and this is what they're looking for. And furthermore, I think one of the biggest challenges, and I'm sure there's probably someone in the audience that's been through this at some point, they've probably looked at a job at some point and said, that's exactly where I want to go.
Mhm.
And then they interview and they go, absolutely not. No, thank you. And it goes the other way too. There's many a time that, as recruiters or even one of our clients goes, this is exactly who we want to talk to. But if it's not a cultural match, it's not going to last. And so I think digging into that is extremely important as well.
So I want to move on and talk about what can hiring managers do to help them or their companies stand out and find the candidates.
Yep, I would say, okay, automatically everybody goes, well, we got better benefits. We have here's the salary offering, and that's obviously important. No one's going to take away from that. There's someone I follow on LinkedIn who makes a lot of, and I enjoy it, but they make jokes about the fact that companies will offer someone 25% less and then say, yeah, but we have a pizza party on Friday. Um, that does not constitute culture. I would say, however, that companies that are able to highlight culture, hiring managers are able to say, this is who we are. This is why our mission matters. Okay, for example, I represent a recruiting company. If I said, yeah, we're just trying to get as many people into as many jobs as we can, that does not speak to the human spirit. And that's not what we want to do either. If I say, look, our mission here is to change people's lives, we want to make a difference. If that's what you're about as a recruiter, that's what we want. If you're aggressive and competitive, that's wonderful. But if you're so aggressive and so competitive that you lose sight of what it is we're here for, this may not be the best fit for you. And so being able to speak to, here's why we exist. If I was a manufacturer of plastic injection molded products, for example, and I said we make plastic parts. Great. Well, there's a million of those companies. Why would I want to work for you? But if I then say, hey, when the economy takes a turn for the worse, we see dialysis usage go up because of the people's budgets are restrained, and therefore they have to settle for lesser quality food. And we're seeing people go into that mode, and we're saving lives by making these parts that go into these machines. If this is what you want to do, come join us. That's completely different than saying we make plastic parts. I think speaking to your why, and I believe being able to ask questions that are not just skill based, but more so relevant to a match, trying to seek to express to the job seeker, we actually care that whoever joins us, this is a two-way street, is going to love working here. And so we want you to know who we are. We want you to know how we deal with conflict. We want you to know if we have a sense of humor. We want you to know how we were able to stand out in the market. This is how we do this. I think those things matter to the right job seekers. If I have 3 opportunities and they're generally all the same, and I felt energized and I felt welcome and I felt like this is exactly this is the breath of fresh air compared to what I've been in the last 2 positions I've been in with previous employers, because these people actually care about what they say they believe. I'm absolutely going to want to go for that company. So I think as a hiring manager, I think culture and representing that culture, and if you don't know what that is, dig deep before you start the recruitment process, and do some soul searching and figure that out, because the right candidates are absolutely going to need to be in tune with that.
Right, right. So let me ask you this. What do you think job seekers need to do? What do you feel like is their biggest challenge in 2023 in being seen and being found by employers?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things I would say is, whether people like this or not, one of the first things employers do, especially at the professional level, is they Google you. And to this day, Googling someone is not illegal, so they can do that. And so, I think paying attention to your online presence is important. And we all have opinions about things. I think expressing them in a civil manner will probably suit you well, because at some point, an employer is going to look you up online and they're going to see who you are, or who you've put out yourself to be out there in the market. I would say this: if you have not invested in a positive and current and well explained and well thought out LinkedIn profile, take the time to do that. And I don't mean to be funny, but I cannot tell you how many times we'll look someone up on LinkedIn. There's no picture. It shows the last person that they worked for, the last company they worked at, and that's pretty much it. And I think more and more, especially at the professional level, clients are looking to to see who can we see that you are before we ever speak with you, right?
Mhm.
I would say that's huge. And of course, I think it goes without saying, I think making sure that when you do get the attention of a hiring manager and employer, that your resume aligns with where you're wanting to go. And it may go without saying, but I think Beverly, you could probably speak to this more than even I could. That the reality is sometimes I know some people that have for example, the experience of a project manager and the experience of an operations manager and the spirit. And if you kind of just have it all there without highlighting certain things, it's very easy for an employer to go, "Oh, that's not what we're looking for." And is it
Mhm.
fair? Probably not. Probably not fair. But it is. It is what happens. And so I think that's critical as well. Those are the things I think. In addition to that, I would say this: talking to people when you don't need a job, not that
Mhm.
you are fickle, not that you need to leave every 6 months from another opportunity, but just being willing to have an open conversation with someone that's either a recruiter or a hiring manager and say, look, I'm happy where I'm at. Thank you for reaching out. I really do appreciate it. Let's stay connected. Only because, and that may seem like a strange thing for a business owner to say, like, you don't ever want anyone to leave. Well, people are going to leave, and that's part of it. We want them to grow, and if that's here, great. But if that's somewhere else, wonderful as
Mhm.
well. Ultimately, I think what I'm getting at is oftentimes people shut a door before it's ever really fully open, and it's not how you want to handle things. And now we're seeing some of the fruit of that. Whereas a year ago, a lot of job seekers may have kind of ignored people that were reaching out. Um, and now they're circling back going, hey, I just read your message from a year and a half ago. And it's like, no, I think you read it a year and a half ago. It just didn't mean as much at the time. So I think those are some important things that I would encourage.
I echo everything you said. Especially, it goes back to that whole relationship piece
Yes.
from the other direction, just like we talked about with the clients, and having that, building that relationship, and um, staying involved in your network. And even if you're a bit introverted, you
Right.
still need to figure out how to network with people,
Yep.
and have people that can support you when it does come around. You just having those
Yep.
people to fall back on and say, hey, this is what's going on. Just putting something out there if you hear of anything, that kind of thing.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about relationships, as you said.
Absolutely. So I want to ask you a final question. Let's talk a little bit about how we can bridge the job seeker with their challenges to the company's hiring, and knowing that they're also facing challenges.
Mm. Yeah, and not again, not to sound at all cliche, but I think if I were to put it in one word, the word would be empathy, because human nature is, frankly, look, I have 6 kids. Okay, so let me speak about it on this level. I've never had to teach them to be selfish, ever. Their children are born kind of naturally selfish. Our 10-month-old daughter is gorgeous and beautiful, but she's never said, Mom, you've worked so hard all day. You take a nap now, and I have it from here. She will always ask for more because that's what babies do. So intrinsically, as human beings, we want people to take care of us, and we think of our own perspective, and we think of how we look at something, and it's not always natural to look at something from someone else's perspective. So I would say for the job seeker to, again, do what you can, of course, to align yourself with people that can advocate for you, which is why we believe in recruiting so much, and finding someone that can speak to who you are to the right person on the other side. But also know that that hiring manager is still doing a job. And so when you don't have a job, your job is looking for a job, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that hiring manager, yes, it's super critical. And if anyone can scream from the rooftops, it's frustrating when someone tells you, "Oh, I need this position filled yesterday." Then you send them the perfect candidate, and a week goes by. It's like, you're not going to find them. Time kills all deals, right? So I think for the job seeker to have a little bit of patience and understand that this is their full-time job looking for a job. The person on the other side, this is one of their jobs, right?
Mhm.
That's, I think, an important factor. Now, let me flip that. Let me flip it. So for the hiring manager is to literally look at it from the exact opposite. Like, hey, I've got all this going on, but for this person, this is literally their life right now.
Mhm.
And my time and communication matters. And oh, by the way I respond and the timeliness of my response may give the people on the other end the impression that we're just kind of casual about things that should matter more to us. And so there's a lot, I would say, that goes back in my mind to simply put empathy, looking at it from the other person's perspective. Okay, you want to be thorough as a hiring manager. That's great. 4 interviews may be a little much. It may not be necessary, and I know you got your reasons for why you do what you do, but understand in this market that, if a person is a high quality candidate, there's a really good chance they're not just talking to you, right?
Mhm.
So I think just, everyone being able to see things a little bit from the other party's perspective goes a
Mhm.
really, really long way.
Yes, yes, I agree 100%, and it's just so much so that you hear a lot of people complaining about ghosting and things like that, and you have to understand that from the hiring manager side, you may be getting if you've posted that job on Indeed, you may be wading through hundreds of
Right,
applicants looking for that right person,
right,
and
right.
the best you can do is to send that thank you for your
Yes,
application, we're reviewing, and that may be all you ever get out there to them. And
right,
unless they're working with someone like you that is a recruiter that recruits for like positions all year long, they may completely fall off the radar. And those hiring managers aren't necessarily ghosting them. But
right,
just from their perspective, it's like, if I'm looking for a job, this is my livelihood. How I pay my electric bill, how I pay my
right,
mortgage, how I put
right,
food on my table depends on whether or not I get a job.
right.
And if you're not quick to respond, I'm moving on to the next
Correct,
one. And
correct,
so
100%.
it's just absolutely a little empathy on both sides. And it's hard. I'm gonna say, having done what you do, when you're in the weeds of it, sometimes you get a little bit jaded, and it can be hard to stop and go, "Oh, these are real people with real circumstances that
Yes.
spouse that morning, or
Yeah.
whose kid fell off the swing at the
Mhm.
playground and is
Yep.
dealing with whatever." And so having that empathy, that was one of the things we always talked about, I know, in my office. So I just appreciate so much your insight. This has just been such a valuable discussion. What I want to know, Adrian, is where is the best place. I know you're on different social channels. What if for job seekers or hiring managers, where's the best place? I'm assuming that's probably LinkedIn. Do you want to speak to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, yeah. So I would say the best place to connect would be on LinkedIn. In regards to either the job seeker, and I'll just to for folks know, our company has traditionally, as Beverly mentioned earlier, focused on roles within manufacturing, construction, from the skilled labor side to the professional project manager, operations manager. This year, we've delved a little bit into a different direction, some executive and biz dev and things like that, more traditional search. And so we do have a wider array of possibilities than we did even just a year ago, just because we have
Mhm.
seen the perm placement market demand go up from employers for a lot of market related reasons. I won't go into all that right now, but yeah, I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. And of course, my email is Adrian, simply Adrian at ROLINC.com. And if I could just throw this out there, the reason for the funky name, Rollink, right, was in 1993. Our company started not as a recruiting or staffing firm, but as a online resume database. And this was in 91 that this was started. Then we converted to staffing in 93. it started as Resumes Online Incorporated, thus the name. So that said, would love to connect with you. And if I can help on either side, whether it's the job seeker looking for the right opportunity or a hiring manager, employer saying we're struggling to find the right people, be more than glad to have that discussion with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I put your information in the chat. And I just want to say thank you to David Ball, who said these were great messages today. So glad that you joined us and that you felt like this resonated with you. What I want to add is to anyone watching this, if you're catching the replay, please make sure you add hashtag replay. If you've got questions for us and you want to ask them, feel free to leave them in these comments or reach out to us directly. We're both very active on LinkedIn, and that's probably the best platform to find either one of us. The other thing I would like to add is that if you found this great info helpful, leave a comment and tell me what your biggest takeaway is, or tag someone that you feel like could benefit from watching this. I know I do that when I watch a great video, even if it's after the fact. I will tag people that I think can find it useful. Same thing if this is valuable. And just as a reminder, I work with mid and senior level professionals. So if you're ready to invest in a professionally written resume, go ahead and send me a DM and let's talk further about that. And next week, I'm going to have another special guest. My friend Bethany Wallace is going to be joining us. We're going to be talking all about soft skills and how to include them on your resume. So I think you're going to find that really valuable. Make sure you mark your calendars. We'll be here Wednesday at 12:30 Central Standard Time. So Adrian, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. It's
Thanks,
been a
Beverly.
pleasure, and I feel like we could continue this conversation even further, but you're just going to have to come back and maybe we can talk a little bit more about 2024 and what's going on then.
Absolutely. Would love
All
to.
right.
Thanks, Beverly, for having me on. Appreciate it.
You're quite welcome. And guys, thank you so much for joining us. I will see you in my next video.